Hi, I'm Kayleen. This is my 7th video on my YouTube channel. I've been trying to do it every other week. I want to have a work-life balance. I do know that YouTube likes weekly YouTubers to put videos out, but that doesn't work for trying to get my book finished. So I started this channel as a way to promote my book. My book is going to be called Mom Remembers Me. It's a graphic memoir with pictures. Although I'm using Adobe Photoshop and InDesign for the pictures, and I draw other people in there. So my book is about me using my health and fitness knowledge to stop my mother with mild dementia from forgetting me. She passed away in 2019, so I've been working on the book while she was still alive, and now that she's passed away, I'm gonna finish it by this summer. I have 2 more chapters, which are the sad chapters, but I'm gonna finish it this summer. So during this time, I wanted to thank you for clicking on my video. Can you let me know what made you click on this video? Was it the picture or the name? But I wanted to talk about how to look at caregiving differently, and also what I should have done if I look back, and I learned a lot in hindsight writing my book of what I could have done to delay my mother's dementia. She always had mild dementia. So in my opinion, she couldn't live alone anymore, but she did need to be watched 24/7. She didn't do anything unsafe. But I had a lot of crazy things happen. And when you read my book, hopefully I hope all of you guys will be reading my book, you'll see all the crazy things that happened that were not of my mother's fault by any means. She made the same mistakes that everybody else made, and people would come up to me and say, "You got to watch your mother." So I wanted to point all those things out in my book. So the first thing is, like I mentioned, I wanted to mention that I think you should look at art and look at caregiving differently. So what I did when I started taking care of my mother hated to stay home, and I hate to drive. So we kind of had this clash. But I also liked drawing as a kid, but I got away with it because I thought it wasn't good enough. And now that I got back into it in the past 5 years, I realized I was good. I had a lot of natural instincts and looking for the negative space and looking at how to create something in the distances and proportions and even perspective drawing, which is always a challenge for a lot of people. But I also had another video where I mentioned the neuro tests, which I don't understand how they could possibly make somebody draw a cube as part of the neuro test when somebody has not been taught. But I have that in a different video. But what I think you should do, if you decide to start caregiving, you should look at some form of art that you like. So that could be anything from jewelry making to woodworking to flowering, gardening, and involve your caregivee, your parent or your relative, or even if you're working, involve them in it. So when I started going to a lot of these I started going to all the paint nights, and then I started to create and bring my own big sketchbooks, and I started drawing and copying, learning from the instructor. Here's one binder. See, I filled it all up. And I might do a video showing all these later, but for now, I'll just show you a couple of my favorite. Here's one book that I filled up, which is really cool to have this book all filled up. And I had some of the instructors also say that they liked my idea because having all these paintings on canvas, I'm not going to fill my condo with all of those, but I liked having them in a big binder. It looks like a sketchbook. So there's another little picture that I took. I drew this, and of course I added in, I painted it, and then of course I would add in some more other stuff. But and then I would kind of copy. Like this is one that I really like. So I realized that these little big shapes here are kind of too big, but you'll even learn art, right? So I wanted to bring this up because you could use your art, any form of art, and then also you could see what your caregivee's love of art is and maybe learn it with them. So I wish if I had some more time with my mother, I would have started learning the piano again. As a kid, she always tried to get me to learn piano, but I didn't like piano. But now, doing a lot of brain research, I have learned why I was not good at the piano. And the reason is I couldn't look at notes on the clef, on the treble and the other clef, and know what it was just looking at it. So if some teacher had realized that was my problem and started quizzing me with flashcards so I could just look at the note and know what it was, then I wouldn't have hated piano so much. But since I couldn't remember which note, and I remember FACE, if anybody else, any musicians out there, right? I remember FACE, but everything else I could not remember without putting it at the bottom of the notes on the sheet music, or just redoing it. Every single time I looked at it, I had to say every good dog does fine over and over and over and over again. So that was my problem. So I would have picked up piano again if I had some more time. So that's my suggestion. Either maybe my mother could play the piano. My mother always was a good singer too. So that was the first thing I wanted to share. I think you should look at caregiving and see if you can create some form of art. So what I did with the paintings all the time is looking at images is considered harder for your brain than even playing chess. So what I also did for my mother is I created a digital photo album, and I put on the photos in the digital photo album what they were, and she spent a lot of time looking at that, and I really believe that really helped her. But when I was out painting, I also would have her look at the instructor's painting, but was already done, because there's always two of them, right? There's one that the instructor is painting, and there's one that we can see to be finished. So I would always have her look at that and look at mine and tell me what I still needed to put in there. And then I would also tease her and say, okay, what else can we do to make this kind of a crazy painting? Like maybe add Godzilla in there, things like that, to really make her think. So that's something I think if you look at caregiving a little bit differently, it would challenge her. I have a friend that doesn't want to take care of his father, and because he says that he repeats himself so much. And yes, I know they repeat themselves a lot, but I realized when I was out with my mother challenging her brain, she didn't repeat herself so much. When we were home and she was bored, yes, she would repeat herself and ask me over and over again what that noise was, which was usually the dishwasher. And then I learned not to run the dishwasher until we both went to bed. But when they're out and about in the car doing something, their brain is being stimulated, they're not going to recycle that stickiness in the brain. And all of us have that. We always have our brains going around and around. So I wanted to add in there. The other thing I really wished I had paid attention to, my mother was a very good social dancer, which means when dancers have a lead and a follow, which is all the ballroom, all the salsa, as well as all Lindy Hop, those are a social dance because you have a leader and a follower, which could be a man and woman, or it could be everything, right? So with my mother, she learned how to do leading of all those dances too. So she could lead and follow country western two-step, Viennese waltz, rumba, cha-cha, and then I was teaching her West Coast swing. So if I look back, when her nighttime vision got scary, she stopped going out dancing. And because she also used to drive 90 minutes one way to go to dances, probably at least 2 to 3 times a week. And then there was a point where she stopped doing that. And now in hindsight, I wish I had spent some time making sure she kept that up. Ballroom dancing is the #1 way to keep challenging your brain. All the Alzheimer's, all the dementia books talk about ballroom dancing as being a challenge for your brain. And my mother was good at it, and she was good at both sides, and she would do both sides all the time. So if I had thought that realized that she wasn't doing it and how much that probably would have hurt her brain, even though she was living in Massachusetts and I'm living here in California. When I moved her out to California, I still could have organized some way to keep her dancing. So if you have a relative that has something like that, and it could be singing, choir, anything like that, something artistic, and they stop doing it because they are afraid to drive or nighttime driving, then I would create ways to keep it going. My mother never did anything compulsive, so she stopped driving. Even with me, she didn't want to drive. She never tried to drive. She never tried to cook or clean. I do know that that is a huge battle when the elderly should not be driving anymore and their relatives, their kids have a hard time taking away their license. So what I would also like to suggest is that you look for other reasons why they shouldn't be driving anymore. So is it only that they don't remember how to get themselves back home or get themselves someplace? Or is it maybe something else? Is it possibly their vision or their hearing or their depth perception? I've seen people of all ages when it could be a simple 3-point turn and they have made it a 15-point turn. So their depth perception is off, which is part of their brain. So also when it comes to the elderly, maybe they should not be driving because they're twisting flexibility. So that is my posture link for today's video. I said in all my videos, I teach all kinds of physical fitness. I've been teaching health and fitness for 35 years. What I've learned is I give my classes what I call a posture link. So they work on their posture all day long. So when they come to my class, their core is stronger. So 80 to 90% of accidents are caused from changing lanes. And I would guess that people have lost their twisting flexibility because they don't do it. They don't check their blind spot, because you all know that there's a whole car that could be in that blind spot. So maybe with the elderly, they have a hard time turning. So if you help them keep that twisting flexibility up, as well as making them do chairs and squats so that they keep their legs strong, so they still keep on drinking water, because dehydration is going to hurt their brain. And the elderly don't want to sit to pee, or at least women and maybe men as well, right? So keep their twisting flexibility up for you as well, all ages. When you're driving, twist all the way and check your blind spots, and then you won't get in a car accident. You'll keep up that twisting flexibility, and then also with the twisting flexibility, that also helps with your gastric. So that also keeps pushing everything through your 28 feet of a colon. So that's part of my posture links. And I also wanted to, like I said, I wanted to encourage you to look for art for yourself. And if your relative is entering into the 70s or 80s and they have some form of art that they like and they've been doing it, which is good for their brain, figure out a way to let them keep doing it, and it will delay their dementia. Because my mother didn't really get, not really dementia, where she couldn't live alone anymore till she was 85. So that's not really early. So that social dancing probably helped her, even though she hated to drink water, which I tried to fight with her to drink water, and I tricked her off of caffeine, which is in some of my other videos. So what I used for my thumbnail sketch for this video was a picture of an owl, and I copied it. I learned it from a paint night instructor. So I apologize. I wish I knew the instructor that made the original painting, but those were going around paint night, and I brought my book and painted the book. So that's part of what I wanted to talk about with using your art for help with your caregiving for yourself, for your own mental health, and maybe even for your caregivee. So that's what that picture is for my thumbnail sketch, was my painting of the colorful owl. The next thing I wanted to go over that I do on a regular basis in my bullet journal, and I've been a journaler my entire life. I still have those little tiny journals from when I was in 6th grade where you lock it. I still have those, and it's really a good exercise to go back and reread those. You end up learning stuff that you forgot and you did know at one point. So one spread and one list that I put into every one of my journals, whether it's I keep 3 journals right now. I keep what I call a running bujo, where I put all the stuff that it's good for many, many years, not just for 1 year, right? I have a calendar bujo, which is kind of like what the bullet journaling community does with my monthly and my to-do list and all that. And I also have a diary bujo, just a journal, this is kind of like what they call the brain dump, right? So I keep that. So I always put one of these, my successes spread, in every one of my journals, my diary journal. So I keep it I put it in the back of every single one I start, so I can start listing. So I just had a really good success yesterday. Today is April 2nd. No April Fool's jokes from yesterday. The mayor of my city, Milpitas, told me, and he also told Amazon, that they have to reduce the sounds of those trucks. So if any of you guys have heard the new sound about a little less than a year ago, Amazon added in a bird dying backup sound that has been driving me nuts. And I do specifically tell them that noise would throw anybody into a tailspin. So if you have anything on the spectrum, so I know my mother was still alive, hearing that noise would make her mad, because the noise is jarring, and I call it a bird dying noise. So it's not the normal little beep beep. And they always tell me that everybody tells me it's for safety, but there's no laws that it has to be there. I actually know from speaking to somebody at the National Highway Traffic in Washington, D.C., So I have been pursuing this for the past 10 months, asking Amazon, and there's a way that they can be quiet, or they could park in the roundabout, but they won't do it. So I started involving the mayor, and he finally just told them, because of course Amazon's answer was it's there for a national safety standard, but either they're lying to me on purpose, or they're just trying to throw me away. So yesterday, the mayor of my town, my city, my little city, told Amazon they have to reduce those sounds. So I'll keep you guys posted if you ever ask me a question in the comments about that. And I also spent some time trying to get this pathway open because my city wanted to close it. So they did that at the beginning of this journal. So these are my successes that I've done during just this time of my this journal here. So I was really proud of myself yesterday when the mayor of Milpitas. So write yourself a my successes list in every journal that you have, even your calendar bujo or your brain dump journal. This is in my brain dump journal. The next spread, the next list that I put into every one of my diary brain dump journals too, is what I call I don't care. I don't care if someone doesn't like me. I'm at the point where I'm not inconsiderate. I'm definitely probably one of the most considerate people you would ever meet. But I don't care about so many things that really shouldn't matter. And I think somehow women probably always feel like we have to be agreeable and likable. And if you let a lot of those things go and you stop worrying about if everybody likes you, or if someone doesn't invite you to lunch, stuff like that, you should list it on your I don't care. And I also think that it's a lot of the arguments that happen on Facebook and social media happens because people feel a need to try to control and teach other people. But if you I stopped arguing with anybody or disagreeing with anybody on my Facebook because it was just a never-ending mental anguish. So I just started making a list of I don't care if that person gets it or if that person ever learns how their thinking is wrong. Number one, if you start thinking about the brain, once someone's brain is going a certain direction, I kind of think about it as like a rat going down a maze. They're not going to go the other way, no matter what you say to them. So I always try to remember the expression, fools try to explain, wise people don't bother. So I highly recommend you keep a list in one of your journals. I just don't care. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be a jerk to somebody on purpose, but I'm not going to care if my neighbor doesn't wave at me, things like that. We always somehow wonder, like, well, why didn't they wave at me? Why didn't they say hi back? We got to let that stuff go, right? So I highly recommend that you let that stuff go. The last thing I wanted to remind you, I already taught you your posture link. Does everybody remember? I feel like I'm teaching my classes. Remember, I teach all sorts of health and fitness classes. But do you remember, which is part of the neuro test, they asked my mother 3 words and drawing a cube and some other stuff. But what really bothers me is those 3 words. So do you remember what your posture link was, which was probably only about 12 minutes ago in this video? If you don't, I'll remind you again, because I'm used to repeating myself as a teacher, that you want to make sure you always check your blind spot while you're driving, especially when you're changing lanes, and of course 3-point turns and parallel parking, right? So make sure you check your blind spot. Remember, sit up nice and straight, erect spine, retracting your shoulder blades, and twist from your tailbone. If you twist, when the biggest reason for back pains is when you rotate when your back is rounded. So I actually have a pillow in my car, and so it sits there, because the problem is the cars are called bucket seats, so it makes you round in there, right? So I put a pillow to keep my back straight, and also when I'm driving, I always pull my head back so it's touching the cradle there. I would actually take that cradle out, but I was afraid if I ever get in a car accident, you need that cradle so you don't flip your head back. But the cradle, if you don't have a pillow in your car, it would suck you all in like a potato chip, right? So put a pillow, sit up nice and straight, right on your sits bones, do a nice twist, and then also change your rear view mirror so it makes you sit up straight to use it, right? Thanks for watching. I would hope that you subscribe to my channel. I know all of us YouTubers are always bugging the crap out of you guys to subscribe, but it is a way for more people to see my videos. If more people subscribe, then YouTube will put my video up there in front of more people. So thanks a lot. I would welcome any questions. If you do want to see my painting books that I did during all the paint nights with my mother, by all means, let me know. Thanks a lot. Have a good rest of your weekend or the rest of your year.